I always love seeing how hacking is depicted in pop culture, especially older media that was written in a different technological landscape. It's one of those things that really illustrates the proverb, dystopian fiction writers don't predict the future, they look at what's currently happening and extrapolate from there. It's also kind of like how Star Trek, a much more optimistic sci-fi show from the 1960s, more or less predicted some of the casual actions we'd be doing with cell phones and computer tablets some 60 years later. Shadowrun 20th Anniversary Edition was published in early 2009, and it similarly encapsulated the idea of the Internet of Things, complete with all the ways it can be absolutely stupid. Not that it was alone, since Mega Man Battle Network, which came out a few years before in 2001, also did this. I digress though. Today, we're going to be talking about the hacking subsystem in Shadowrun 4th Edition. The hacking chapter of Shadowrun 20th Anniversary Edition starts on page 216, and I'm going to spend a moment drawing some comparisons between the internet in our world and the Matrix as it is described in Shadowrun 4th Edition. Their equivalent of the internet, the Matrix, is described as a wireless mesh network. Upon being sent out, traffic is broken up, sent across different paths through the network, where it all comes back together at the receiver. Meaning the only way to intercept a message, command, or whatever else is to be in close proximity to either the sender or the receiver. Which is a plausible enough explanation, since in the real world, mesh networks are one of the more stable methods of keeping internet traffic flowing. It becomes harder to take down the network the more nodes there are. Which is also the case in Shadowrun 4e. The more devices running in an area, the more stable that network connection is. And to facilitate that, almost everything is online capable. Kind of like how we have the Internet of Things in this year of our Lord 2024, where everything can be controlled or examined through an app in your smartphone. Otherwise, it's the same deal in Shadowrun 4e, right down to the smartphone, though in Shadowrun, this device is called a comm link. Shadowrun also makes a lot of use of augmented reality, something that so far is little more than a novelty in our world. Augmented reality requires either having cybernetic eyes or wearing some kind of visor or glasses that can connect with your comm link, much like the Apple Vision that's so big as of this writing. And much like the trite uses for exorbitantly expensive Apple Vision, AR is used to give your character a heads-up display like they're in a video game. And advertisements. Lots and lots of advertisements. That said, this gives anybody in the sixth world who wants to be a hacker lots of things to play around with, so long as they're able to get physically close to them. And if you want to be able to operate machines at the speed of thought, just plug your head into virtual reality. Literally. The method you're using when connected to the Matrix does give some mechanical benefits. Being connected to augmented reality doesn't do anything for Matrix actions, but for certain tasks, it can make getting useful information easier. The GM may give a +1 to 3 bonus if you can find information regarding what you're trying to do. Otherwise, this is kind of the standard method of using the Matrix. VR Cold Sim, which is the normal way to use Matrix in virtual reality, lets you use your Matrix Initiative score, which is your character's initiative and their device's response rating, and it also gives you 1 additional initiative pass. Just keep in mind that your body is limp and useless when you're in VR. Your brain isn't controlling your body anymore, but what you're doing in this game's version of the internet. VR Hot Sim is where you turn off some of the inhibitors of VR technology, and the Matrix feels even realer than real. It's more than just a part of you. You get a whole host of bonuses for Matrix actions doing this. In addition to using your Matrix initiative, you also get +1 to that, and you get 2 initiative passes. And you get +2 to all rolls for Matrix actions. But in addition to not being able to use your body, you become vulnerable to Black Hammer programs, data spikes that go through your VR headwear and fry your nerves directly. Risk, reward. With the basic concepts taken care of, though, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the mechanics, shall we? When you're connecting with the Matrix, you need a device. Most often, this will be your comlink. There's 4 stats used when interacting with the matrix: firewall, response, signal, and system. Firewall is your device's ability to fend off unauthorized access and malicious commands. Think of it as your device's defense. Response is the process power of your device, how fast it can run, and it influences your matrix initiative. Signal is how far out your device can reach. See the chart on page 222. System is the efficiency of the operating system of the device. It's a measure of how well it can actually use the hardware that it's installed on. As such, if your response is lower than your system is lowered to be equal to your response. All devices also have what's known as a device rating, a measure of how good that device is at what it does on a scale of 1 to 6. Higher is better. If a device doesn't have matrix attributes, simply assume that its matrix attributes are equal to its device rating. If, for some reason, you want to upgrade a device's matrix attribute, consult the chart on page 222. That's how much new yen your character will need to spend to find the modules to improve it. You know, just in case you're doing some hardcore computing on your chicken fryer. The skill groups involved in hacking are cracking and electronics. If you happen to be a Technomancer, you'll also be using the skill group tasking, which I'll go more into later. The electronics skill group covers all of your legitimate uses of comlinks and computers. Computer, which is general computer use, meaning if it's got an LCD or plasma screen, that's how you get the most use out of it. Data search, which is your ability to make use of search engines to find what you need when you've got a lot of data. You know, your Google foo. And hardware is how you fix and upgrade your devices. There's also software, which is writing programs, and those are pretty much the backbone of doing anything on the Matrix. Beyond a few Technomancer uses though, software is not used for much in the Anniversary Edition. The cracking skill group is where all of your more questionable uses of the Matrix are. Cyber combat, which only the Matrix attack action uses that. I like to imagine you're using something like the real-time corruptor to send somebody manual blasts and make them see clown vomit. Electronic warfare, which is the skill for messing with wireless signals directly, either through copying and decrypting them, or just filling the airwaves with garbage so nobody can use them. And hacking, which is where the bulk of your Matrix actions that involve doing things you're not supposed to comes in. If skills are your understanding of how to use the tools available for certain applications, then programs are the tools in question. Besides a few actions that any device with an operating system can perform, you need to load additional programs if you want to do other things. The amount of programs you can have is based on your processor limit and response. Basically, more processor limit, the more you can do on the Matrix. Comlinks have a processor limit equal to their system. You can use a number of programs equal to your processor limit before having your response lowered by 1, which, as a reminder, will affect your Matrix initiative and your Matrix defense. Each program also has a program rating, which indicates how powerful it is, and thus how much dice it'll give you when using an action that calls for it. If you happen to be running 2 programs of the same type, you only get the benefit of the strongest one. So you're not allowed to stack a bunch of attack 1 programs to get a really high Matrix attack dice pool. And worth noting is that there are 3 different programs for using Matrix attacks. In order of increasing lethality: Attack, Blackout, and Black Hammer. Every icon has a Matrix condition monitor, which is the same concept as the condition monitor, only applied to the stability of a thing on the Matrix. Attack only disrupts icons. If it takes too much Matrix damage, it gets booted out. Agents will shut down, files get corrupted, so on and so forth. Like I said, it's a manual blast using the real-time corruptor. Blackout and Black Hammer are special. They can only affect people that are using the Matrix, as they send the same signal that Attack uses, but through the SimSense module that allows for virtual reality. Basically, if the Attack program makes you see clown vomit, Blackout and Black Hammer make you feel clown vomit. Instead of damaging your Matrix condition monitor, they target your stun or physical condition. Blackout, being the less lethal version, only deals stun damage, and none of that stun damage will ever overflow into physical. It'll knock you out, but it won't kill you. Black Hammer is not so delicate. If you're in Hot Sim, it'll do physical damage first. If you're in Cold Sim, you'll only take stun from it, at least until your stun monitor is filled. Then it starts overflowing into physical. The only protection you have against Black Hammer and Blackout is the biofeedback filter program, or just not being in VR when you decide to misuse the Matrix. Another worthwhile program is Agents. Agents are a special sort of semi-autonomous program. They're a program that can run programs and understand somewhat complex commands. Agents have something called the pilot attribute, which determines how smart it is, and it also doubles as the system rating, as well as the computer, cyber combat, and data search and hacking skills of the pilot. However, the system rating is equal to the node that it is running on, which this seems like a good time to explain where nodes come in. Part of the idea of how the Matrix can be used and abused in Shadowrun 4e revolves around the idea of nodes and icons. Anything that can connect to the Matrix or exists on the Matrix is going to be an icon. Files, people using the Matrix, agents, programs, your air fryer, icons, all of them. Nodes are places on the Matrix. Any sort of computer, comlink, or anything else that has a bunch of devices connected to it. The core book doesn't specify how the physical structure goes onto that node. That's probably something in the purviews of the Matrix sourcebook Unwired. Anyways, nodes are the places, icons are the things that exist in those places. Normally, if you want to know something from what's going on at a node, you can just send a message and it'll send you something back. Maybe. Kind of like if you were to ask them if they have an air fryer hooked up to that node. And if they don't answer, they clearly don't own one. But if you want to look around on that node yourself, because you want to know for sure that they don't own an air fryer, or that if they do, you want to know what sort it is, and if yours is better. To do this, you have to do what's called subscribing to a node, and you may only be subscribed to system times 2 nodes. For a more modern example, think of it as being involved in so many Discord servers. You can only act in one node at a time, much like how it's very difficult to type into several servers at once, or impossible to be in voice chat in 2 different Discord servers. Every node has 4 access levels. Public, which lets you see the information of the node, but not much else. User, which lets you interact with other things on that node. Security is that you're a moderator of the node, and admin is you own the node. Bringing things back to agents for just a moment, if you have a security or admin level access to the node, then you can start running programs using that node, including agents. And an agent sent to independently run on a node counts against that node's program limit. To continue with the Discord analogy, this is a bit like making your own bot for a Discord server. You're going to need some kind of computer to run on it, either yours or a server somewhere. So let's say you found a mainframe somewhere that a rival hacker group is using to host a bunch of agents that are probing around and sniffing for information that they can use as blackmail material. If you want to mess with their plans, you can always try crashing that node using an exploit program, which will shut off all the agents and require them to be relaunched. Now, in both the real world and in the fictional world of Shadowrun, blasting things will draw attention to yourself, be it in the physical or digital world. And for nodes, this can set off one of 2 kinds of alerts. A general alert, where the node knows it's being attacked, but not necessarily by who, and a restricted alert, which targets one person who the node thinks is responsible. This, in addition to perhaps some other actions like launching programs that will just stare angrily at the offender or attack them, probably with Blackout or Black Hammer. If you pick the Technomancer quality at character creation, you can make your character a Technomancer, a living computer with strange spell-like abilities that can only be operated on the Matrix. They do not need a device to connect to the Matrix. They are their device. This also means they have a slightly different method of gaining access to new programs. Instead of paying new yen, they would instead pay karma to learn complex forms. They're functionally the same, but cannot ever be taken away. Also, their matrix attributes are derived from their normal attributes, per this chart. Firewall is their willpower, response is their intuition, signal is their resonance divided by 2, rounded up, and system is their logic. Their biofeedback filter is equal to their charisma, and their VR matrix initiative is intuition times 2 plus 1, getting them 3 passes. They're always considered as being in hot sim. Technomancers also use the same skills as hackers, but with one caveat. Technomancers do not learn these skills the normal way. Specifically, there's a Technomancer version of cyber combat, and a computer version of cyber combat, and the two are not interchangeable. And Technomancers learn complex forms instead of using programs. They function the same as one another, and each program has a complex form of the same name. Technomancers also have an ability called threading. They can temporarily upgrade or gain access to complex forms that they don't normally have. The role for this is software plus their resonance rating. Hits can be used to increase the rating of the form on a 1-for-1 basis. Not all the hits need to be used, since this task causes fading, the Technomancer equivalent to a mage's drain. Each hit used is 1 point of fading that they suffer. The greatest benefit of being a Technomancer, however, is sprites. They are the digital equivalent of spirits, and while they are similar to agents, they are not dependent on running on nodes, and they have their own unique powers. To compile a sprite, it is compiling plus resonance versus the rating of the sprite that you want to create. The net hits you get is the amount of tasks that the sprite will owe you, and it'll only stick around for 8 hours. This, of course, causes fading. An unregistered sprite sent out on a remote task on another node causes the Technomancer to lose all of its owed tasks, just like with spirits and mages. They also have the option of registering a sprite, which allows the Technomancer to keep it for just a little bit longer. The role for this is registering and resonance versus double the rating of the sprite, and it takes a number of hours equal to the sprite's rating. One net hit is all it takes to register a sprite, and every extra hit is an extra task that the sprite owes. This causes fading. The major benefit to registering a sprite is that they stay until all their tasks are used. The total amount of registered sprites you can have is equal to your charisma rating. And if one Technomancer doesn't like another Technomancer sprite, there is decompiling. Decompiling is resonance versus the rating of the sprite, plus the resonance of the Technomancer if it's registered. Net hits reduce the amount of tasks that the sprite has, and like everything else you do with resonance, this causes fading. I've mentioned it plenty of times already, so let's take this opportunity to go over fading in more detail. Fading is resisted with willpower and resonance, and every hit reduces the amount of fading by 1. And whatever is left is how much damage you take in fading. Technomancers, like their spiritual mage counterparts, have a method of improving their power. For Technomancers, this is called submersion. When a Technomancer undergoes submersion, it raises their max resonance, making it 6 plus their submersion grade. And they also gain 1 echo power per submersion grade. Echoes are not too impressive. Many of them are simple improvements to their living persona stats, i.e., their meat becomes a better computer. Rigging is the fine art of using your hacking skills to control devices. Nothing says you can do one but not the other, so this section of the book points out some different considerations you'll need to make. Those considerations being that you'll want electronic warfare, hardware and pilot, and mechanic skills. All the better to fix and maintain your drones and make sure your signal is strong and healthy. Drones are devices, though they have a much more tangible effect in the physical world. In fact, if the idea of how appliances and computers can be connected to the internet and what you have is a little confusing, it might help to think of them as the worst remote-controlled car you can imagine. Any device can have a thing called a rigger adaptation installed. This lets somebody jump into the device. Being jumped in gives you a +2 to your dice pool to all actions while you are using that device. And yes, any device can have this installed, including your air fryer. you can become one with the air fryer. Though putting yourself into one really tricked out machine is but one strategy riggers can employ, the flip side is controlling an army of cheap, disposable drones to do your dirty work for you. For this, you're going to need a decent pilot program, which works much like its agent counterpart. If there's a question as to a device's mental attributes, use its pilot program. And if you send a command out to a drone and it encounters a situation it is not designed to handle, you roll its pilot and response rating to see if it's smart enough to figure out what it should do. With that said, there are 3 ways to command a drone or any other device with a pilot program. You can use your meat body, such as speaking to it, writing messages, using hand gestures. This is where you will need to use the pilot program to see if it's smart enough to interpret your signals. Or, if you have a command program, software designed specifically to let you control the device, you can use that as sort of a virtual remote control. And you use the command rating in place of its attributes. And last, as mentioned earlier, you can always jump in, merge yourself with the drone, see what it sees, feels what it feels. In these cases, you use your skills, but the drone's attributes. Just keep in mind that if you're in hot sim, any damage the drone takes, you also suffer as biofeedback. And there's autosofts, additional programs that you can add to a drone or device to expand what it knows how to do. Mechanically, it lets drones do things they normally wouldn't be able to. So if you really want to make sure only you are messing with your air fryer, you can package it with a targeting skill soft, install a gun on it, and then it'll fire at anyone who tries to use it and is not authorized to. It is the state of the art of chicken cooking technology. The Matrix in Shadowrun 4th Edition is our modern Internet of Things taken to its ridiculous extreme. Everything is online, everything is vulnerable, and if you've got the know-how, you can do a lot of really ridiculous and unauthorized things. But given the limitations of how mesh networks operate, you oftentimes still need to physically move to the locales that you're trying to hack into. More nearby devices means more likely you can reach a given device. So, the top of a skyscraper or the depths of a basement are the best places for a corp to hide their servers. There's also a lot of risk and reward strategy in Matrix shenanigans. And if you somehow want more detail on how all this works and what you can and cannot do, the Shadowrun 4th Edition book Unwired has you covered. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful or helpful, give me a thumbs up like. And if you want to know more about Shadowrun or other really rules-dense tabletop RPGs, check out some of my other videos, or consider subscribing. With all that said, shoot straight, conserve ammo, and never cut a deal with a dragon.